Hello, I'm Daniel Newman, Principal Analyst and Founding Partner at Futurum Research, and I'm coming to you today from GeekWire Studios. We're here today talking about how wonderful gets done, performance made flexible. This is going to cover all the things that are happening at the edge and the developments and advancements of edge computing. I'm joined today by Dennis Vilfort and Renee Torres. Excited to have both of you here. Renee, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey, thanks, Daniel. So I'm a vice president for our sales and marketing group and general manager of our IoT strategic accounts, specifically focused on edge computing. We're super excited today to be with Dennis to talk about edge computing, one of our greatest growth opportunities with one of our key partners, HPE.
I'm Dennis Milford. I'm in charge of cloud computing over here at HPE, and we're very excited to work together with a great partner as Intel, bringing computers where they haven't been brought before, at the edge.
So Renee, can you talk to us about the opportunities and technology trends that are going on across the edge computing landscape?
We're super excited about this opportunity. There's a lot of things that are really driving growth for edge computing. And it's across a number of different verticals, everything from healthcare, manufacturing, the energy sector, smart cities, retail, education. It's pretty endless because if you look at things like cloud computing today, cloud computing can't solve all problems. In fact, you look at some of the challenges that edge computing is really tackling. It's things like being able to protect and secure your data, keeping it private, making sure that we're able to enable low latency types of applications like manufacturing, persistence of connectivity, making sure that you've always got connectivity at all times, the ability of doing new edge AI insights that have never been done before. And last but not least, as you begin to put more of these applications together and consolidate them, you're able to lower the TCO of your factory or your retail environment. So there's an added beneficial value in terms of lowering CapEx and OpEx, which is why we see the rise of edge computing.
It's definitely been on the rise. It's been a trend that I have been speaking about endlessly over the past few years as the data proliferation and just so much more data is being created there that's going to become opportunistic for edge applications and the cloud, which is why we hear those things talked about together so much. Dennis, HP is an important partner with Intel, helping drive growth of edge computing. What does HPE see from an opportunity standpoint, and where is HPE focusing its efforts?
In terms of where spending is occurring, it's a very simple equation. Follow the data. And there's actually the data at the edge is growing, as you pointed out, 16% year over year, where the data in the traditional data center is just keeping up with inflation around 3 percentage points. So when you look at those two, you go, oh my goodness, all the data is moving to the edge. Well, the important part about that is you have data at the edge, which is a mirror of how we transact business. You have to be able to compute upon that in real time, which means instead of the data moving to the cloud, which we are so used to, now the opposite is happening. The compute is moving to the edge. And that's where we're building systems like our Edgeline family that is using Intel processors for higher and higher compute core density at the edge so we can get more done in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is going to be a big key. I've been following the work that HP has been doing with Edgeline for a number of years. Definitely been showing an innovative front of the market approach, and it's been well received by the market. There's been a lot of very successful outcomes and wins with customers. So that's very good. And I think with Ice Lake, we're going to see some more growth here, which brings me back to you, Renee. What does Ice Lake deliver to help industries transform and ensure the highest confidence in a secure environment?
First of all, we're super excited about the upcoming launch of our Ice Lake processor. This is a third generation Xeon scalable processor on 10 nanometer. So state of the art circuitry that we're pulling together that delivers a whole nother level of capability. And if I could just kind of summarize it, and we'll talk more about this, but number one, more compute horsepower. So if you look at Cascade Lake, that was the predecessor Xeon scalable processor that we were using for IoT workloads. We went up to, for example, a maximum of 22 cores in that platform. We're excited that we're now bringing in 28 cores, more horsepower. You can do a lot more workload consolidation. On top of that, We're going to bring in new capabilities and continue to grow on our AI footprint within our silicon. We call this deep learning boost, and how we can help to increase and speed up that inference performance at the edge for all of these different types of verticals we're talking about. A couple of other things, more security. As you think about edge computing, it's critical that you now have more surface area for attack. So helping to protect those endpoints, not just in how, keeping them tamper proof, but now protecting memory, applications that are going to get affected by malware. We can now protect it in memory with things like our secure enclaves, our SGX technology, as well as our total memory encryption capability. And last but not least, we're adding more throughput onto the platform with PCI Express Gen 4. All of this combined helps to deliver a platform, especially on an edge line type of platform, for example, where you can deliver lower total cost of ownership across the board.
Renee, can you provide a few examples of solutions that companies can benefit from with Ice Lake technology?
I appreciate this question because, as I mentioned, there's multiple new features and capabilities coming on with Ice Lake. And if I could just maybe touch on a couple of them. If you look at the additional cores, that means more horsepower. More than ever, companies are looking to lower the total cost of ownership as they think about their production line, for example, in a factory. So more cores means you can now deliver more AI work streams and be able to consolidate them at the edge. So things like doing defect detection, to be able to add that with things like predictive maintenance, asset optimization, being able to take that and now visualize that all on one edge server. So if I have all of these capabilities and I have things like our deep learning boost technology, I'm able to do inference much faster at a lower cost than I've ever been able to do before. If I now add in the secure element piece of it, as we talked about, one of the key barriers as to why edge computing is becoming more and more important is we really want to make sure that that data is secure. Not everything is going to go back to the cloud, but if we're going to have it on site, then it's got to be something where now we have a new surface area of attack. We've got to make sure that it's tamper proof. And so as we think about this, it's not just protecting the physical asset, it's protecting it from things like malware, for example. This is a huge problem in industrial where malware gets into the factory. It can contaminate a device. So now one of the key things we're bringing to bear with Ice Lake is the ability to go do total memory encryption on a physical and virtual memory perspective. So doing multi-tenant protection for VMs. And now if you really want to go a step further, you have SGX, which is our secure enclaves approach to protect specific applications, again, from things like malware. I think all of this combined helps you to get the very best TCO for edge computing and also doing it securely.
Dennis, in our preamble, you said some really smart stuff about the exponential opportunity, the multiplier effect that's going on with edge and the potential TCO for customers. I'd love for the audience to just hear a little bit about that.
When you're dealing with edge computing, you're dealing with 1,000 sites or 500 sites. You're dealing with a large number of sites. So any amount of money you can save on just the core solution scales across sites. So for example, if you have 1,000 sites, but you manage to do a more efficient solution in whatever problem you're trying to address, turns out that if you save $1,000 per site across 1,000 sites, every time you do that, that's $1 million saved. So efficiency at the edge is super important, right? The fact that I can, instead of having 8 servers, I can now cram it into 2 servers at the edge because I have more cores. That is wonderful. I can cut costs. And that frankly makes the feasibility of edge computing much more real for customers. There's many times we've seen proof of concepts that didn't get into reality. Why is that? Simple: cost, complexity. Well, we're reducing all that with Ice Lake, and now we're making edge computing even more real.
I love what you said, Dennis. I just wanted to add to that. If you think about it, in using an industrial example of that exponential opportunity, every industrial factory is like a miniature data center. And if you think about it today, when we look at what we're able to do at defect detection, we're able to take up to 32 cameras on a 6-core, industrial PC platform. Now, if you imagine taking Ice Lake with up to 28 cores, not only can I continue to grow in terms of taking all those camera endpoints and improving on defect detection, but I can add in new workloads like things like time series for predictive maintenance, asset optimization, visualizing this across the factory. Not just that factory, but to your point, I can do 100 different factories as a network and being able to take advantage of that value that we get by more cores, more performance per unit to lower the cost of ownership.
Dennis, I'd like to come back to you, sort of tie this all together. Can you share a few examples on your end of the solutions where HPE is really focusing on this partnership with Intel?
We've done a lot of solutions already with Intel and with our Edge line and with our Aruba networking division. And it has to do with the fact that when you look at the edge, it's actually a systemic approach. It's no longer a data center out, it is a business need in conversation. So we have to bring the total bench of technology to bear to solve customer problems. As an example, we did Texmark in Houston recently, and that's a case where you have several hundred pumps and several thousands of feet of pipe working with highly flammable gas and refining essentially in the petrochemical industry things under pressure and heat. So there's sensors everywhere, there's pumps everywhere. And in the old days, they walked around and visually inspected that. And today, with modern edge computing, what we can actually do is bring networking and compute to bear with software and with partners. And we actually managed to increase the output by 2x, doubling the output with the same gear, and lower their chances of maintenance interruptions by cutting faults in half. And that had to do with the fact that we made the people that are responsible for these pipes and these pumps into superhuman, because they could actually sit rather than walking the walk, thousands of miles of pipes. They actually have to just sit and look at it from their control room with sensors everywhere, with cameras everywhere. And that's the kind of edge computing that a modern refinery needs. And if you can take that and then make that into any other business you can imagine, you end up seeing a huge transformation in every single business, whether it's retail, healthcare. They need localized computing, high amounts of data that needs to be reasoned upon in a very short period of time, whether that is catching COVID or catching cancer or giving customers a better retail experience. So it's everywhere. It's really a post-data center world we're looking at now, where it's not the data coming to the data center, it's the compute coming to where you live and work.
Thank you to today's panelists for joining us. Check out more at Intel's Partner Pavilion at the URL on your screen right now. And that is how wonderful gets done.